everyone. Good morning, good evening from whichever part of the world you're joining us from. My name is Oluwadamilola Akintewe. I am the host of the Student Voice series on Check the Hog, the social impact arm of Check, which is an international organization that provides educational resources for students all over the world. And today, the essence of Student Voice series is to amplify the voices of young people who are creating change in their community, and also to raise the voices of young people as to solutions in making the world a better place. And today, I have with me someone who is wonderful. She is just an amazing human being. She's an attorney at law. She's also a lecturer of law in the UK. She is an amazing Sri Lankan young activist advocate who is passionate about legal education and social impact. And that's why today our topic is intersecting law in social advocacy, because I am a law student. Please, Chiranthi Senanayake, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I've been practicing it.
Perfect, the pronunciation.
Chiranthi. So please, so that we can start, just introduce yourself to the audience so that they can know what you do.
Sure. Firstly, I would like to thank you for organizing this session. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm absolutely honored to actually be here. And it has been a wonderful experience meeting amazing young women, and especially, I would say, young change makers in general, such as Dami through the Czech Global Student Prize. About myself, I would say I recognize myself as someone who has a very divided interest in life, because my professional interest is rather different from my advocacy interest. I mean, there are certain overlaps, but if I have to talk a little bit about myself professionally, I'm an international sustainable development law researcher, and my interest is really in terms of mapping the overlap between law and sustainable development, especially in the global south, which is the developing world. I'm actually currently engaging in research with regards to that particular area. Enter into academia so that I can have the time as well as resources to really pursue my passion in international sustainable development law. Then in terms of my advocacy interests, I am actually interested in this very selective area called youth empowerment incubation. And what we try to do there is, from my experience of working in the youth development sector of South Asia, something that all South Asian countries have in common is that our approach to youth development is very focused on this avenue called bottom to top approach to youth development. That's where we encourage young people to be very active in community leadership, grassroots level engagement, but that really prevents young people from getting an equal seat at the table when it comes to top level development processes like policy formulation, like system creation. So what we see is a lot of young people are passionate advocates, passionate activists when it comes to community level engagement. But when it really comes to going beyond that, what we call bottom level youth development processes, they're often restricted by either the political leadership of the country, or it could be certain economic obstacles. And simply because of that, we don't have enough youth representation in system creation and policy discussion. So that's what we are trying to sort of bridge through youth empowerment incubation, where we are trying to actually get young people to be active stakeholders, in parallel active stakeholders in both top level youth development processes and grassroots level youth development. So that's why I say that my professional interest and my advocacy interest is a little bit different to one another. But since I am, as was already mentioned, since I'm an attorney at law, I also do help out in the pro bono law as well as human rights spaces of the country. So that has been, it's always rewarding, but I would say that is something that I do simply because it's a heart's calling. So I would say it's something that really allows me to give back purely through my practitioner qualification, because I don't formally practice as an attorney at law. But yes, that's a little bit about myself. And Abby, thank you so much again for having me.
Thank you so much. And sincerely, I don't think there is much difference. You know, you say that your interest in your professional interest and your social advocacy interest is different, but sincerely, I don't see a difference. And that's why we're having this conversation today to see where they connect the gap. You guys, so I am studying law. You're an attorney. I mean, you're practicing as a lawyer. You're teaching law. I am studying law. So it's like, in a way, our opinions might be similar, but due to geographical location and the differences in the local legislation of our individual countries, there will be definitely like little differences, but it may not be that much. So let's go straight to the conversation today. My questions, I have my questions ready because this is going to be very interactive, and this session is specifically majorly for people who are already in the legal profession or people who have interest in the legal profession. Maybe you want to go to law school and you're trying to see how can I use law as a way of improving my society. I mean, when we talk about pro bono is not really easy to do. Like if we're being practical, it's not very easy to run. But then there are other ways that as a lawyer you can contribute to your society. That's what we're doing today. So my first question is, Chira, you for years you've been in this space for, if I should guess, like 2015, prior to 2015. So you have a good number as experience in the space of social impact. So can you tell us your journey through law and social impact? How did you balance both?
Sure. Again, that's a fantastic question. Is conversation on the intersectionality between law and social advocacy is lacking because I don't know whether this is the same case in your home country as well, but in Sri Lanka, we actually see that the public has lost a lot of faith in the legal profession because law is often looked upon as something of a money-making avenue as opposed to something that actually brings about social advocacy and I would say real impact on people. So since there is a general loss of confidence over the years in the legal profession, I think we need conversation of this nature to improve public faith as well as legal activism, as I call it, because I think that's absolutely crucial for us to move this mindset and this general public perception about the legal field. So saying that, just to map my sort of experience and my humble journey in the field of legal advocacy in the sense not mainly within the courtroom, but outside of the courtroom as well. I would say I was interested in law because of a very funny reason. And so one is, of course, there was a very clear motivator. My father is also a lawyer. So I actually saw, and he practices outside of the capital, which is Colombo. He practices in a very small village called Kegol. And I would actually see the service that he rendered to the community when I was very small, because I completed my primary education in Kegol. In a small village school called Royal International School. And I would actually see how the amount of faith and the amount of reliance the community had on my father for legal advice. And that in itself really exposed me to the important role of a lawyer, that it's the service of a lawyer is far beyond legal representation in the courtroom alone, that it actually involves a lot of community level leadership. It involves in certain cases providing just, sort of like an ear that they can speak to, or it could even be simply where they can come to you with their problems and just seek humble advice. So when I was exposed to that, I actually realized the absolute importance of legal professionals to the smooth functioning of a society. And I think that conversation is crucial because this is something that law schools don't highlight enough, because law schools focus a lot on law as a theory. How do you, for example, practice? Yes, exactly. So I think this conversation is crucial because we don't talk about law as a avenue for change enough in law schools. So that exposure that I recently encouraged me to come into the legal profession. And in addition to that childhood experience, I would I realized that society often has three common repeating problems. Damia, you can hear me? Am I audible or? Yes, okay,
Yes, you
perfect.
are.
All right, amazing. So when I observe society, I realize that society always has three problems. The first type of problem are what we call financial problems. Second type of problems are legal problems. And the third type of problems are medical problems. And I was not cut out to be a doctor. I didn't actually have the patience, nor I think the intellectual commitment to be a doctor. So because of that, I actually was very interested in, I think, following my undergraduate education in law and economics because it really fascinated me as to how law and human growth actually overlap quite a bit, but it's such an under sort of engaged discussion. So that is how I actually got into law, and I did my law qualification, that is the LLB, in parallel to my practicing license, because those two have to be obtained separately in Sri Lanka in order for you to go into a courtroom and represent as an attorney at law. So, and as I was actually in university, and I was also while I was also at Sri Lanka Law College, I actually had the opportunity to participate in legal aid programs. I had the opportunity to actually be part of I worked with different societies that focused, like clubs and societies within Sri Lanka Law College, that focused on bringing the law closer to the community. And all of that actually helped me to realize the amount of reliance there is and the amount of respect that people do have for practitioners that do a noble service. Where, I've actually, for example, been part of legal aid programs where we've spoken to women who are like victims of domestic violence, and they actually have absolutely no one to talk to about how to get out of an abusive relationship. I've been part of legal aid programs where we've spoken to women who work in plantations, who actually have, for example, labor law issues where they haven't been paid properly in months. So those are the real life issues that, people outside of our comfort zones actually had, because I was very much exposed to I would say, the metropolitan lifestyle of Sri Lanka because I live in Colombo. But the opportunities I received through when I was a student allowed me to see that the law was far more than what we actually learn in the books. Then as soon as I graduated and when I took my oaths, I actually also looked at the legal system in the country. And what I noticed is a lot of institutions that were there to really help lawyers, to empower lawyers, focused a lot on providing professional services. Like, for example, you would have the Bar Association of Sri Lanka who would actually help you to develop your professional practice as a lawyer. Then you have the same service being done by the Junior Bar Association of the country. So you had enough institutions that were really focused on developing and providing platforms for young lawyers to enter into the profession. So there were enough professional development platforms, but there really wasn't enough conversation with regards to merging law with social advocacy. So that is essentially when I was thinking it is really important there, because I'm sure there may be other law students and lawyers who are part of my friend networks or my professional networks who would actually join in today, who probably done far greater service than I have. But they would also agree with me, I think, that it is very important for us to look at the idea of social contribution and advocacy beyond the classroom itself and beyond the legal profession. So that's been myself and a few others. Sorry, Tammy, were you going to say something?
No, not really. I was just nodding because I can really relate to what you're saying.
Sure. But if you do have anything to add, please do interrupt me and then add to the conversation. So what I, myself and a few others from different law schools, what we realized was there was a need for a platform where young lawyers, especially young lawyers who are interested in doing so much more beyond merely representing in a courtroom, to give back to society, to bring law closer to the community, to, for example, make people far more aware about the rule of law, make people far more aware about their legal rights. So realizing that, we actually thought of this concept called the Young Legal Professionals Association of Sri Lanka. So we are actually a subgroup under this initiative called the Sisterhood Initiative. So that's actually run by Mrs. Marini D'Oliveira, and she's actually a women and children rights practitioner who's also a lawyer herself. So under her guidance, a couple of us actually got together and we tried to really merge the concept of young professionals, young legal professionals, law students, LLB holders, young attorneys at law, all below the age of 40, who were interested in engaging in community level problems, sustainable development related problems, who are interested in bringing the law actually a lot closer to the community. And I would also have to honestly say, even though we started it off, there was also this problem of continuity, as in I'm still trying my level best to continue the project forward. But it becomes really difficult for young lawyers because young lawyers are very focused, I think, on establishing themselves, and they have to go through, for example, periods where their seniors don't pay them. They have to deal with the economic problems of the profession. So it becomes a little hard to retain the attention of the lawyers towards using their legal skills for social advocacy, community development, etc. So we have had our struggles. But I think the whole ideology behind the Young Legal Professionals Association is, how do you make people far more closer to the law? Because this is just a humble observation, I mean, but if you, I'm sure this is the case. Yes, sorry, you want to share something?
So, I like to know, one of the questions I actually, it's like you saw my questions. And I wanted to ask that, when we talk about bringing law and social impact together, the first thing that comes to a person's mind is legal aid, that you provide free legal aid. But you and I, we have to be practical. We have to be realistic that to provide free legal aid as a young person who is passionate about social development, like you said, the economic barriers, the financial barriers, there's a whole lot of barriers that are stacked up there. But then, of course, one of the essence of leadership is the ability to see a problem, provide a solution, and replicate and duplicate the solution while also inspiring others to buy into the idea. So I want to ask you a question. Now, you are already practicing as a lawyer. You're an attorney at law. You're teaching law. For me, as a student who is currently studying law, not yet called to bar and all that, what would you say are other ways lawyers and law students can leverage on legal education for social impact aside from providing legal aid? What other way, especially for rural communities? Because if we're being sincere, rural and underdeveloped communities are always at disadvantage. And the essence of sustainable development is that it must get to the grassroots level, not just for popular places, not just for the big cities. If we're going to have real development, it must reach those in interior parts, because I believe in this saying, none of us is free until all of us are free. So if we are going to balance the scale, we should get to those communities. So how can lawyers, what other ways can lawyers and law students contribute to social development aside from just providing legal aid?
Sure, I think that's a fantastic question, which connects very well to the mapping that I made of my journey in law and legal advocacy. So you're very right, because when we really think about the role of law in bringing about community level development, there is this assumption that the only way we can do it is through legal aid, by providing pro bono services or by organizing a legal aid camp. But I would say that is perhaps the most, to use a Latin term and to explain what it is, that's the most prima facie way in which you can support people, the most surface level way in which you can support people. Because in my opinion, there are different levels of legal advocacy outside of the courtroom. So the first level of legal advocacy is the most obvious, which is pro bono services and legal aid. And when we talk about legal aid and pro bono services, it doesn't have to be about organizing, let's say, a massive legal aid camp in a rural village, or it doesn't really have to be a situation where you have initiative and you have to invite the Chief Justice, because all of those things are initiatives that require a lot of resources, which you may not have. But I really think that legal aid and pro bono services have to be thought of as a very personal sort of experience. For example, initiatives like this, I don't talk about publicly because there is a lot of confidentiality associated with pro bono cases that I help out in. But just to give like a simple example, I remember when I was working on a project for the Young Legal Professionals Association, I finished a meeting and I was going back in the bus, and I there was this lady who was sitting next to me in the bus, and I remember I started having a conversation with her, and she was telling me that she's actually a domestic worker who worked in Saudi Arabia for around act or a statute that requires change. Hi, Dami, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Sorry, oh my gosh, could you not hear me all this time?
No, not like for some 20 minutes. It
Okay.
froze. So yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Okay, can you hear me now?
The
Let me
network.
try.
Have any
Okay,
Okay, so we have like 5 more minutes to the end of the
sure.
live session. So we could just do like a brief of recap, because I want to do the highlighting of. It's because I have so many people that this video will be going through. It's supposed to be like a form of resource for those, in law school, who wants to do something but they want to get to rural communities and go outside of the traditional, just providing pro bono aid to people in need. And the network is acting up again. Good. Oh, okay. All right. So the network was acting out. Let me recap what Chiranthi was saying earlier. Okay, so as a young person, as outside, okay, she's back. Awesome.
Hi, Tammy. I'm so sorry that this keeps happening. I don't know what's really wrong with my internet.
It's out of our control. It's just internet acting up. So I don't want this to happen again, because I don't know how like it could keep acting up. So I just want us to recap so that we
Sure.
can make use of the good minutes we have left.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so for a young lawyer or a young law student who is passionate about social development, aside from going to law courts and providing pro bono cases, you talked about they could also give legal advices, talk about labor laws, like legal advices are around labor laws for people who are in need. It's not necessarily about providing pro bono cases. Some people need legal like knowledge before they can make decisions in business, especially for rural dwelling farmers who have to go through economic, contracts and all that, and they may not have access to these resources, and they could get cheated. The essence of law is to bring justice, is to bring social equity and all that. So aside from those three emphasis, well, oh my, is today your birthday?
It's not. It's actually, I was just going to tell you that's just one of my friends coming to bully me. Please don't mind him. It's just coming so that then you'll actually be excited and you'll wish me a happy birthday. So he's just trying to be like diabolical. So ignore him.
Okay. So in general, my last question so that we can round up, because we are already running out of time. My last question is, what would you say as a person in the legal profession already? Although you studied in the UK, but you're practicing in Sri Lanka, if I'm precise.
Yes.
So what would you say to someone, a young person who is passionate about social impact and who wants to do something with their degree or with their license? What advice would you give to them in 2 minutes? What advice would you give to them when they are facing like some issues, when they don't know how to go about the journey? What advice would you give to them?
Sure. Thank you again, Dami. So to actually just in 2 minutes, share some humble advice with anyone who's in the legal profession who wants to be a practitioner. What I would say is, being a lawyer and studying law, both of those experiences are not easy. You are going to actually encounter so many difficulties. And I would also say mental challenges of going forward with a law degree and then getting your license, because it involves so much of time and processes. But I would say, even though it's very difficult, please do stick with it, because it's going to end soon and you are going to get your license or your LLB sooner than you think, and all the hardship is going to be over. And once you do get your degree and your license, etc., the amount of impact that you can make is phenomenal, because in addition to what Dami also mentioned, a new sort of advocacy that's there in the legal field is what we call conceptual advocacy. I just want to take like 15 seconds to explain what that is. So that's something that I'm involved in now. That is where you actually take law beyond our current understanding of it. Now, for example, the work that I do and the research that I publish has a lot to do with decolonizing jurisprudence in the global south. How do we really remove Western biases and influences of colonizers? Yes, that's perfect. I mean, I'm just so happy that you're reading that and expanding your interpretation of jurisprudence. That's fantastic, Dami. So I think Dami is also going to be a conceptual advocate as well. So I think that's really important, the fact that you always question whether or not the law that you are studying and practicing is effective. And through your research, through your advocacy, try to reform the law and really play an active role, instead of just being a lawyer who writes a petition or a plaint and just goes to court, represents the client, and comes back home with a fantastic sort of earning from the case. Because I really think there is so much more that you can do, and it's because legal professionals it's simply because legal professionals don't integrate social advocacy into their daily lives that so many problems still exist, because legal professionals have the capacity to be change makers. So that's something I would like to say as a point.
Thank you so much. Like integrating social advocacy into your daily life. That's what I say. And when people ask me, I tell them that, okay, so I don't want my only identity to be an activist or an advocate. I want to be so much more. Yet I am still an activist. I am still an advocate, because everywhere I get to, I hold the fort. I keep the door open and I stand for a particular social cause that I am passionate about. It could be women's rights, it could be educational opportunities, whatever it is. It's just about integrating social advocacy into our daily lives. The best way to make the world a better place is when each and every one of us work together, because two good ends are better than one. I mean, you're all hands on deck into creating the world of a dream. So thank you so much, Chiranthi, for joining me today. I know you're a very busy person, so I really, really appreciate your effort. And to everyone who is watching, last year, Chiranthi was one of the top 50 finalists for the inaugural Global Student Prize, sponsored by CHEG in partnership with Varkey Foundation and UNESCO. And I also happen to be top 10, one of the 10 people who made the final finalists. And this year, the Global Student Prize is out again. It gives you the opportunity to showcase your work to the world. It's an international, a national, a local recognition and all that. But most importantly, you get the chance to meet brilliant people. I mean, if not for the Global Student Prize, there's absolutely no way you and I would have met. And I am here in Nigeria, and I am inspired by your work, as no, you are already into a space where I hope to get into, the legal professional and social advocacy space. So it's really, really wonderful. So for every student watching this, go to www.globalstudentprize.org. Check out the criteria. You have to be a student. You don't have to have changed a billion lives. You could just be doing amazing thing in your community, and that's what matters. You identifying a problem, creating a solution, and inspiring your peers to join in. So go there, check it out, and apply. And when you win, there is a chance to win $100,000 prize that can be pushed towards you as a person. So why not, if not, give it a try? You never know. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining this live session. The next episode is going to come up on the 2nd of March, 2022. See you till then. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.